Hi, I'm James E. Welcome to Roar. And this is where we speak up and speak out to help preserve our democracy. Because there's a lot of fear in this country. A lot of people are afraid of speaking up and getting in trouble. And this is not the way the country was founded. These are not the values that they hoped that would still be in place almost 250 years later. And so we're going to come on here with my co-host, Rick Rosner. Rick, it's great to see you. Hi. And, we have another guest today, and we are introducing ourselves earlier, and he has said that he's old enough to be a curmudgeon and can complain along with us. It's just not going to be you and me complaining today, Rick. Donald, hello, good to see you. And Donald, can you hear me?
I certainly can.
Okay, well, welcome to Roar. And I think as our first guest on our show, that we should start with you. Do you have anything that is on your mind that's especially bugging you about our society today, or along the lines of trying to preserve our democracy and shared values that we used to have that are threatened now? That's the premise of the show. You can argue with the premise, or you can tell me what's going on, what's at the top of your mind.
Well, the thing that is the most salient to me, that I find the most concerning, is it's a little complex, but the simple thing of it is the amount of individualism that we've had programmed into us. Like this whole mythology of the frontier person who goes out and lives by themselves with their family, and that this is the good right thing to do. It's very interesting, the history of that. That was actually it was Colt, the guy that made the revolver. What he did was he was limping along trying to get these going, and then there was a general that had his Colt revolver, and he shot somebody and saved his life. And so he decided Colt revolvers were so great that he arranged for the military to start buying them. Colt got very rich, but then he switched into making movies. And actually, first he started writing books, and these books were exactly what we're talking about. It's Clint Eastwood style, and in fact, that's part of the whole story. But they became enormously popular. They're like romance novels are so popular now. It was like everybody loved these things, and then eventually he started getting into the movies. And actually, the producer that he used was a guy named Pugsley, which is where the name of Pugsley Adams came from. The Adams family. Yeah. And so Pugsley started this whole thing of these spaghetti westerns, and John Wayne and all that stuff was this mythos that they completed based on the very popular genre of novels at the time. Colt made a ton of money doing this. And his point was to sell revolvers, of course, keep his revolvers. But it just got into our brains that somehow the United States was based on these people who were just completely independent. So we got completely out of the more cosmopolitanism of the idea that we're an egalitarian society made up of all different kinds of people and things like that. And we got very much into the idea that the reason people are successful is because they work hard, and and that anybody can be successful. And if somebody isn't successful, it's their own fault, and all this kind of stuff. And we've kind of it's got other aspects to it, but the simple thing is that we've kind of got that attitude in the United States, and it made us prey to some of the sophisticated techniques they're using now to create division, so that on social media and stuff, that we can get people can get more views. And I think that's a fundamental problem. I lived in Finland for a while, and there they don't think that way. I mean, most of the world doesn't think that way. but we've kind of painted ourselves into a pretty terrible corner. I mean, Trump is an example. I mean, the guy's a bully and supposedly successful businessman and all this kind of stuff, and it's just marketing hype. I mean, the guy's a moron.
So a couple of things. One is Hitler's favorite literature are the kind of frontier cowboy novels that you're talking about.
I've read that. Yeah, he loved it.
Two more recent things. You touched on one. Social media makes everybody more egotistical and self-centered because it's a delicious, personalized data feed every waking moment. And two, another thing is reality shows. Now, we're used to them now, but
I've never watched one.
Me either.
But the deal is realities like the Osbournes turned this family of drugged up, dysfunctional, lunatic rock star family, made them, I don't know, a couple $100 million, made the Kardashians into billionaires. And it kind of gave people the idea that A, they're okay just as they are, and B, they probably deserve to be multi-millionaires based on how they are.
I really agree with that. Well, you realize that there was a producer, and his most famous series that he did was the Left Behind books. Basically took the Left Behind books and made a whole Left Behind series, which I've never seen, but I've read about. And fundamentalist Christians just absolutely adore it because it's the idea that the good people get raptured up to heaven. Every time I hear that, I think, well, if you're going to get raptured, can I have your car?
I read a few of the Left Behind books, not for fun, but anyway. The deal is that all the good people are gone, and it's the adventures of people who were almost good enough but didn't quite get Jesus-y enough, and they're fighting for survival in the world of Revelation, where all they.
Well, he made another show. He made a reality show, and he looked around to find a star for the reality show, and he found this blowhard guy that pretended that he was rich, and it was called The Apprentice. And he's actually quoted as saying, he said,
"This I did not know."
He basically said, Trump didn't have these helicopters. They were part of the show. We bought them and painted Trump on the side to make it look like he was a billionaire. He's an actor. He's not a businessman.
Well, there were 17 Trump buildings in Manhattan. Trump only owned 3 of them. The other, he licensed his name for people who wanted to make their building look classy to idiots. And yet, the reason Trump said yes to The Apprentice was they already approached a bunch of people like Mark Cuban. And Mark Cuban looks at a project like this and says, this isn't worth my time. This is going to be a huge time suck, and my time's more valuable doing other stuff. Trump, who ran a rinky-dink 4-person operation that was pretty lucrative, licensing his name, and got to go on Howard Stern a lot. Trump had the time to do the show. And the show, made him. And he was scripted to sound smart-ish.
Yeah. And it was his dad that was the real estate guy that did all the building and construction and stuff. And
both of them. He and his dad were first investigated by the FBI in 1972-73 for racist renting practices. They'd send a black couple in to rent. That apartment's gone. They'd send a white couple in immediately after. Oh yeah, well you can rent that. But
the applications were given a C, and C didn't stand for average. C stood for color.
But we're bitching about Trump 50 years ago. We should talk about Trump right now, because Trump is shooting himself in both feet right now.
I know. He's going to go down in flames, right? He's going down in flames right now.
We hope, because he deserves it, because he's doing a lot of damage. And one question we can talk about is, I've seen both stances on X, formerly Twitter. Trump has shed, if you look at polling, he's probably shed 7 million supporters in the last month. if you do the math, 250 million American adults, 100 million more or less support him. And he's every time he loses a percent of his followers, that's 1 million people. So he's lost 7 million people. And the question is, when you're talking to people, when you're on social media, I'm on Twitter a lot and saying pissy stuff all the time. Do you call them idiots or do you welcome them in? Do you say, we don't like that you voted for Trump, but welcome to the resistance? Or do you say, you guys are idiots, you gave us this present, disaster that we're swimming through?
Well, we're talking about a cosmopolitan view of the country when it started an egalitarian where we were welcoming. Everybody was from someplace else, and so we didn't have this anti-immigrant sentiment. So we want to be that way with people that may have voted once, may have voted twice for Trump, and just now kind of waking up to what the guy really represents, who the really guy is. He's a con man and a fraud. He's been convicted of multiple felonies. He's litigious. He's happy to sue the laborer who built something.
5,000 lawsuits. He's been involved in 5,000 lawsuits.
That staggers the mind to even contemplate that. And
you've got some experience with sociology. Do we catch more MAGA flies with honey or with trying to shame them?
I definitely think that well, I mean, I don't know. It's just the way I do it is lots of times people say things that they regret. And the best thing to do is just ignore it and pretend they never said it and just encourage them
to be better,
encourage their current trajectory, basically. There's no reason to shame somebody. I can't tell you how many times I've said stupid things that I wish I'd actually spent the time to look it up before I said it.
And I'm looking for it now. I hope I can find it. There it is. That's the title of one of my books that came out last year. No blame, no shame. Yeah, so I'm not in the habit of trying to shame others either. I find it's a low vibration. No one could be creative from coming from shame. So we want to encourage.
Michelle Obama famously said, "When they go low, we go high." But then they kept going lower, and it got frustrating.
Well, the bar got pretty low for going high. when you're trying to get above a huge negative, you're still negative.
Well, the thing is that brings everyone down, and I believe in trying to lift people up, and not so that you can step on their neck and raise yourself above them, as some of the billionaires have done. I'm thinking of Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, these types of guys. They don't, care about the people below them. They don't believe in democracy. And these are the types of people that have, Trump was famous for enlisting Musk in order to slim down the government. And, we know that wouldn't last. I mean, those two egos couldn't fit in the same room. So that blew up pretty quickly.
Musk also, which brings up another thing, because Musk is directly responsible for this. Like, given all the noise of what's going on, can you even, when you roar, as the name of the show we have, can you accomplish anything? Because my only social medium is X, and my reach has been knocked down by 95% because I'm saying liberal stuff, and Musk has gamed the Twitter to squelch liberal voices. So I lost a lot of reach because a lot of people just got disgusted with Twitter and the left. And now, and in addition to that, so I used to get maybe 10,000 people would see whatever garbage I put up there. Now it's 300, 400, 500 people. So it makes me, I pretend I don't know that, and I just go ahead and I do my stuff. But
he wants you to pay the $8 a month.
Yes, you can pay him.
I don't want to do that because I feel like A, I don't want to give him money, and B, I feel like if I stick my head up over the trench, somebody might shoot it off. I notice that a lot of the people I follow who've paid for the check mark, they get in more trouble than I do. They get suspended. So I feel
Wow.
like so with only 500 people noticing me, my odds of somebody reporting me for saying something are lower.
Yeah.
So it's a form of self-censorship on my part.
Yeah, I did get booted off of one chat. I was telling Rick about this, and I posted a poll of presidential historians, and Lincoln and Washington were at the top, which is when I was growing up. That's where they were, and Buchanan was at the bottom, and that's growing up. That's where he was, but Trump was listed below Buchanan, and this created a firestorm, and I'm getting back in, but I was booted out because I'm
well acquainted with those presidential surveys. So every couple of years, various organizations do it every few years, and they send a call out to presidential historians, and they usually get between like 150 and 200 historians respond, ranking all the presidents by the characteristics that they think make a good president. And you need to be a presidential historian because there have been 47 presidents, and people like us, we don't know where Buchanan or Pierce or Rutherford B. We don't know, but they do, and so they rank them. There have been 5 of these surveys since Trump was first elected, and in 2 of them, Trump came in dead last. In another one, he came in second to last. Another one, third to last. Another one, fourth to last. So he's never been above the bottom 5 in these 5 surveys. And they haven't brought one out in the last, there's at least one due this year, but I think they're reluctant to bring it out because they don't want to be attacked by Trump.
right.
I got booted off. I had an account that got booted off of Twitter, but then I started another account, which is a complete alias. And I haven't told anybody the name of it. It's a complete secret because I don't want people to find out who I really am. I mean, if they dislike you enough, they'll actually come and throw a brick through your window. I mean, they're not nice people. And
that's why I'm glad to have smaller reach because it's not hard to dox me to find out where I live. And for my wife's sake, for our dog's sake, I do not want people coming by our house.
That's why I created a very, very unlike me persona. That it's pretty tough to figure out it's me. And we've never told a single soul what that account name is, so nobody can accidentally tell somebody and have it get back to me.
I have a travel account. For a while, it looked like if you were coming back into the U.S., customs might stop you and ask to see the contents of your phone. So I have a second. I don't think that's happening, but there were some horror stories, a year ago.
Yeah, it does happen.
So I have a more innocuous Twitter account. That if they want to open my phone, they'll see, then I haven't said anything controversial.
But the idea here is to be able to speak up and speak out without fear, and the what we're talking about right now is fear. And my political awakening started with the Democratic National Convention in 1968. Extended through the Nixon resignation, Watergate, and all of that. And I became hyper aware of politics during those times, and followed the Watergate hearings. With Sam Ervin with the big eyebrows, and showing his shock at some of the testimony. And this was a time of fear in the country as well. But there are people that went to the streets and protested. And they did have incidents. Remember, 4 dead in Ohio, Kent State, and But I keep thinking that what's right about this country can fix what's wrong about it, and what we can't do is become so afraid that we don't speak up, because I believe it's a citizen's job to check the government, and we can do that with our votes. And I'm hoping that that the midterms, we're going to see a sign that this is not
It's
acceptable.
certainly looking that way, isn't it?
It is, and I'm cautiously optimistic that it will continue. I don't know.
I did some research ahead of today's show, and looking like, so most prognosticators have Democrats picking up maybe 20 seats in the House, and the Republicans can only afford to lose 2 seats. So I'm not like, I have an online bookie. I'm not sure that you can even bet on who's going to take the House, because bookies don't like action where it's overwhelmingly on one side. I think it's such a sure thing that, at least my bookie, you can still buy on Polymarket, which is where you buy the answers to questions, you invest in them. It's giving 86% chance to the Democrats. But I think that's probably because a lot of MAGAs are suckers, that they're often overly optimistic. So it looks pretty certain that the Democrats will take the House. A president has never had approval this low at this point in their term. Consumer sentiment hit an all-time low. It's a statistic that's been tracked by the U of M for 76 years. And this is the lowest it's ever been. Sorry, got somebody
That's
cutting.
Okay. I saw that yesterday. Yeah, that's pretty stunning. And just today, the inflation just really shot through the roof. The inflation numbers came out today. And so all of the things that MAGA supported Trump for, no wars, reducing inflation, everything that he ran on is going the exact opposite direction, which we all knew, and we're trying to tell everybody.
And, the idea of inflation going up, sometimes these things are outside of a president's control, but, he was directly responsible. This was a war of choice. And, I think when people feel it in their pocketbooks, that's when they start to vote.
They haven't really felt it yet. We're still in the first month of. So it takes 3 to 6 months for fuel prices to work their way through other products. So we're going to be seeing, grocery inflation for the next 6 months, which is the stupidest timing for this war.
Right.
If he thought, the New York Times did a report on how Trump was persuaded to go to war, and he was sold by Netanyahu, who persuaded Trump that the regime would collapse. So Trump thought he'd get an easy victory, and it would boost his approval, and it would save the House. Hasn't worked out that way.
That's putting it mildly.
And Trump and his family have profited a great deal from connections in countries like Saudi Arabia, and they also want them to continue to take action against Iran. So I do think that Bibi had his ear, and that was very, very influential. But he's also getting, the people that are giving him and his family a lot of money, are also encouraging him. So. You just follow the money with Trump, and I think the other thing he's trying to do is get some sort of control over crypto and make money that way.
He and his family are involved in 6 crypto schemes,
right?
And to the tune of his and his family's net worth of, according to Forbes or Fortune, which tracks it, their net worth has increased by $4.2 billion since he was he was elected in 2024. Now, the trouble with crypto is you can't pull your money out. It's illusory money, because as soon as you pull your money out, the value collapses by 90%. So, hey, you want to be the first people out. You want to be it's called a rug pull. You pull your money out, and everybody else loses
like
all
the runs on banks that we used to get. Yes.
Yeah. So, but it would be hard for Trump and his kids to pull out this $4 billion in current value, but they might be able to pull out maybe, I don't know, 600 million before the value drops.
One of my biggest concerns about like the future of democracy and the future of the United States is that now that this has happened, we'll never be trustworthy again. We can get another Obama that starts straightening everything out, and in the back of everybody's minds, it's going to be, well, they could always elect another Trump, and so we've just completely decimated our and I can't see it bouncing back anytime soon, because
trust in our government has taken a huge hit, and this includes Congress and it even includes the Supreme Court.
Oh, especially the Supreme Court.
Yeah,
it's like you have a friend who's married to an alcoholic, and the guy, when he's sober, he's a really nice guy. But then you don't know, at any given get together, he might get shit faced and just wreck the place. And so, yeah, people are skittish.
A lot of people have an uncle like that. You try not to invite him to Thanksgiving dinner. But yeah, I totally agree.
Well, that's another scourge that's growing in this country, and we'll have a show on that next one.
To me, I think, and this is something that's possible to change, but would be very fraught with peril to try, is that I think the U.S. system of government is just not a good one. I think we made a mistake. We didn't know any better at the time, but most of the successful, if you look at the list of the most democratic countries, like number 1 is Norway, number 2 is Denmark, number 3 is Sweden, number 4 is Finland. I mean, it's just right down the line. And they're all parliamentary democracies. They're parliamentary democracies. And what that does is it gives a voice to all the smaller groups. And then in order to do anything, you actually have to form a consensus and develop a plurality between all these diverse interests. So it winds up being a lot more inclusive than ours are, which has gotten now to be a cult of personality, where whatever the guru or leader says is absolute law.
And how much dark money is involved.
All the countries you mentioned, they all rank high in when their countries are ranked in terms of quality of life and happiness. But another thing they have in common is that they're all teeny. They've all got between 2 and 6 million people, and probably much more homogenous than we are. So with a teeny country, they can be more nimble, like Estonia. 1.8 million people. It's in the same neighborhood geographically as all those. It's a happy country. It's maybe the most technologically advanced country in the world, because with 1.8 million people, they can decide, hey, let's do all this science fiction-y stuff. Like, you can become an e-citizen of Estonia. Don't have to move there. You can become an electronic citizen and do a lot of your business through.
It's interesting. Estonian is as close to Finnish as Portuguese is to Spanish. I mean, they can actually, Estonians can kind of basically understand Finnish. They're close enough to each other. I was talking to an Estonian woman some years ago, and after the wall came down, a bunch of young people, not old geezers, got together and they basically workshopped it. They got a whiteboard and they made basically a spreadsheet where they decided what qualities were desirable in a country and what countries were doing which and that. And they designed their government using design science, basically. And they tried to come up with the best possible government that they can have. And I also want to just quickly say that Finland was very much dominated by Swedes. And Swedes don't really Finns don't like Swedes because Swedes treated them as second-class citizens even in their own country. And kind of as a consequence, as a trigger from the Russian Revolution, they also had a revolution in Finland, and it was brutal. They were putting each other in concentration camps, and when I lived in Finland, I knew people whose grandfathers were alive during, or great grandfathers or whatever. So it was so in their consciousness. And after that happened, they got together and they said, we are going to design a country that can't happen. We don't want that to happen again. So they sat down, did similar to Estonia, but it was 100 years more before that. And they were the first country to really have female politicians. And recently the cabinet and prime minister of Finland, all of them were women under 35. And so there's kind of, when you're there, you talk. First off, the taxes aren't all that much higher than ours, because when you start adding in gas tax and all these different other taxes that we have, property tax and stuff like that, it adds up to, I mean, we're like 9/10 of what they are. I mean, it's not that much higher, but you talk to anyone in Finland, and they just kind of go, well, look what we get for it. I've got free university education, I've got good roads, it's where I lived, they have bike paths everywhere in Oulu, which is it's like a 7-hour drive north of Helsinki, and it's only 2 hours south of the Arctic Circle, 2-hour drive. And they have bike paths everywhere, and at 5 o'clock in the morning, these little teeny snowplows would be out snowplowing the bike paths so people could ride to work on their bicycles. I mean, it's just, and everybody just, and I don't see that that's necessarily impossible in the United States, because I really think it's an attitude more than an attitude.
But Rick, do you think the geographical complexity of the United States makes it too difficult?
When we had 8-9 million people turned out for the No Kings rally, did not impact business at all. If that many people turned out in England or France, it would shut down the country. They would get political action. So yeah, we're 3,000 miles east to west, 1,500 miles north to south. It's hard to shut down the country, and without shutting it down, you can't get results. But I think one thing that Don seems to be implying is the more recent the Constitution, the better it works. Our Constitution's now 240 years old almost. It had a bunch of built-in safeguards, and we've been running it until the wheels fell off, until the conditions arose, until the people arose that defeated the protections.
Right. Yeah, the system of checks and balances has broken.
I will say that if you look at the United States, the Civil War never ended. Okay. And I mean, in fact, there's a great book, How the South Won the Civil War. And one of the real big problems in the way we design things is the way, like the Senate, for an instance, Montana has the same amount of senators as
California.
As California. And there's far more people in the Bay Area, and the GDP of the Bay Area is probably 30 or 40 times the whole state of Montana. So, I looked it up. It's almost $1 trillion a year, just the San Francisco Bay Area. So, Montana,
California just surpassed Japan in size of economy. Yeah.
And so we've got all these leeches and bloodsuckers who are blaming all the problem on food stamps. And these, if you can, like the Tax Foundation makes a table of which states take more money from the federal government than they contribute. And California is well into the contribution part, and places that all these red states are just basically sucking at the tit of the rest of us.
Well, after World War II, the Allies occupied Germany for 5 years and squeezed out all it was called denazification, and they helped turn Germany into an economic superpower and one of the great nicest nations in the northern hemisphere. And so Lincoln gets shot in the head, and that scuttles Reconstruction. And you're right, we never finished the job. We should have come in there with tough love and a ton of money. Like when we occupied Germany, we weren't just mean to Germans. We were tough on. We helped Germany squelch Nazism. There were still, probably 15 million people who were Nazis, but they shut up. They got old. They died. And meanwhile, Germany was building a strong economy. But we never did exactly. We didn't do it.
We wound up. They waged a very effective guerrilla war campaign. I mean, they were still fighting all during the Reconstruction, and then Lincoln had this great idea that for reconciliation he would get in those days the Democrats were the right-wing party, and the Republicans were the more progressive party, and so that was where he got Johnson, and then Lincoln got shot, so a southern racist Southerner became our president, and so they basically backed out of Reconstruction because, and that we've been screwed ever since. I mean, if you go to the South, Southerners to this day, even young ones, will tell you we're occupied territory and someday we'll be free.
Did either of you see the Oliver Stone movie on the documentary? I guess is on JFK.
Yeah, years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was the influence of people that it was highlighted during that that didn't have elected jobs. That was making things happen that are historical significance. And, I don't think we had a CIA back in those days, but, it was, again, you made me think of it because after JFK's assassination, a Southerner, Lyndon Johnson became president. And, he was put on the ticket pretty much, to get elected because he could bring so many votes with him. But he had very different ideas than Kennedy did. And so things that may have happened if he had not been assassinated.
If it wasn't for the Vietnam War, Johnson would probably be considered one of our best presidents. I mean, he signed the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the War on Poverty. I mean, he did an amazing, he was actually a really good guy. And one of my favorite lines by him is he said, if you can convince the lowest white man that he's better than a black man, he says he'll give you money. Hell, he'll give you his wallet.
Right. Yeah. Johnson was a bastard. Johnson was politically ruthless. One of his things that he was known for doing is he'd call somebody into the Oval Office for a meeting, and he'd be in the bathroom taking a shit, and he'd make them meet with him while he was pooping to show them who was in charge. He was like politically like some kind of like the mean genius. He was, and he maybe would have been. I mean, Kennedy. I don't know. Johnson was probably more effective than Kennedy would have been because Johnson knew how to wield power and connections. And it's the nation's good fortune that he decided to pick up Kennedy's civil rights thing and go with it.
If you look into Johnson's history, he spent some time teaching black kids in elementary school. So he had a lot of sympathy for, we think of all Southerners as necessarily, but Johnson was, I mean, I had to rehabilitate my thinking about him because I was so mad at him about the Vietnam War. I didn't think he was any good at all, but he actually turned out to be a pretty good president.
Well, Johnson, in his way, was as big a bastard as Trump is, but for the good. You know, Trump only serves himself. Johnson decided to serve the people.
Yeah. He was absolutely incredibly effective politician. I mean, he could whip the entire. That's how he got the Congress to pass the Voting Rights Act and stuff like that. I mean, I don't think it would pass today.
But even after that, we had Ronald Reagan, who talked about states' rights, which was really code for Southerners. And they had a South strategy since Nixon and to win the Southern vote. And
I think that's not quite as simple. I think that whole thing kind of started all the way back at FDR, that people were very divided. I mean, there's always been this undercurrent that lazy people are taking from the Ayn Rand kind of view that we have in the United States. And I think that's
that goes back to your individualism thing, that everybody succeeds by their own effort, and it's either the zero sum stuff, either you win or somebody less deserving than you wins.
Right.
But I want to mention that we've got a new boss in town, that we're talking about bringing America back, but AI is going to be increasingly in charge, and we don't know what that, and right now AI is kind of controlled by 7 big companies run by like billionaire bros who have proven themselves to not be the most ethical guys.
Hold that thought, because that's going to be the topic of the next Roar, and because I'm going to have to end the show today. Thank you both for joining me and for an enlightening discussion. I learned a couple of things today that I just did not know, and I hope you both will be back next week. I will certainly invite you, but I'm going to take you backstage now and say goodbye to the viewing audience. Bye, Mom. And we will pick up with AI. And
I wish both of our audience members well.
Thank you. Okay.
You're kind of lucky. I worked for an AI company for a while, and I read quite a bit about it. And I'm right here in the heart of Silicon Valley, so I hear all the hype. But I also, my undergraduate degree in linguistics and my graduate work in sociology, I understand how complicated people are, where the computer scientists don't.
We'll take it up from there. Thank you, Donald. Thank you, Rick. Cut him off, but sorry. Well, that's it for Roar for this week. And I want you to tune in next week, because we are going to be more of the same. We're going to talk without fear or favor about what's bugging us, about what's going on in our country right now. And, feel free to write to us at info@airu.tv if you think there's a subject that we are not talking about that we should be talking about. Thank you again.